A ceasefire in international law and in plain English is an agreement between belligerents to cease firing. What is opening in the south part of Lebanon today is not a ceasefire. It is a unilateral right of military action formalized in a piece of paper signed at the White House and presented to the world as a peace agreement. The structure is this: Israel reserves the right to strike, Lebanon does not. Israel defines what constitutes as emerging threat. Lebanon does not. Israel decides when, where, and how to act. Lebanon receives the consequences. This is not a ceasefire. In the analytical language of conflict studies, that is an armed protectorate dressed in ceasefire language. It is a structure that operated in southern Lebanon between 1978 and 2000. It is a structure the United States operated in north part of Iraq under the no-fly zone, a formal absence of war with an actual presence of strikes. So, why has Washington signed off on this? Because in Washington's reading, this is the Lebanon track functioning as designed. The American interest is not the Lebanese state's territorial integrity. It is the disarmament of Hezbollah. The Lebanese government under President On and Prime Minister Salam has formally committed to that disarmament. Israel is, in effect, providing the kinetic enforcement of the Lebanese government's own policy, strikes that the Lebanese state cannot or will not conduct itself, and which it has indicted in private it will tolerate, provided the casualty count remains within possibly politically survivable limits. Let's turn this into a debate. We have Dan Qayyum with us, and he has a very extensive experience of working across Middle East, nearly 20 years. Dan, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Let's look at this Lebanese conundrum. The Health Ministry of Lebanon has documented 6 Hezbollah fighters and at least 2 civilians killed since the ceasefire was extended 3 days ago. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister explicitly told his cabinet on Sunday that strikes would continue vigorously. From your reading, is what is currently operating in south of Lebanon is a ceasefire in any internationally recognized legal sense, or has the term been just used to present it as a ceasefire?
I think, look, Israel, we've seen there's a pattern with regards to Netanyahu, right? So we saw them order strikes on Hezbollah in Lebanon on Sunday, accusing them of ceasefire violations. And this is the same pattern we've seen throughout. Every time the US and Iran get close to a table, Israel escalates in Lebanon. And we're seeing that because Israel's strategic interest is for the war to continue until Iran's nuclear program is destroyed. Any deal that reopens Hormuz and defers the nuclear talks is the worst outcome for Israel. So what we're watching now is, I think, actions in the next 48 hours. I think that's already started, but it will be designed to provoke Hezbollah into a response that collapses the Lebanon ceasefire and complicates the Iran talks. And I think Israel has been the consistent spoiler in this process. The fact that the new Iranian proposal explicitly links Lebanon to the ceasefire framework tells you that Iran sees this too.
What about the Lebanese government? In public, it opposes the strikes. In private, it has not militarily resisted them and has continued the political process towards Hezbollah's disarmament. Is what we are watching the Lebanese state's tacit consent to Israeli enforcement of a Lebanese policy goal? And if so, is that not in the long run a fatal compromise of Lebanese sovereignty, regardless of the ceasefire's outcome?
I don't think it's that black and white that Israel is tacitly agreeing to those. Lebanon is, because I think they've taken a lot of damage, and there was a push to see if Israel would concentrate the attacks on specifically designated areas where the Lebanese government says that Hezbollah is present. But Israel has been, they've operated on their own, and I think that's where the issue is, because there's no military capability from Lebanon's side to stop these attacks. It has to obviously take into account the popular opinion locally, and for that, there's a lot of resistance towards these attacks, but in terms of diplomatic dialogue only. So I think what the Lebanese want, and they've run out of patience with Hezbollah. That's been evident for months now. But I think they want the problem solved, but not in this manner. And I think obviously there's a lot of pushback from the Lebanese as well on stopping this. this whole Hezbollah ruse that basically ends up hurting Lebanese in the process.
Do you think this shadow war has been going on since the Gaza war started after October 7, but it has only now come to limelight for some reason because only Iran raised it as a sticking point?
I agree. I mean, there's been a lot of damage being done, but until the point that Iran didn't raise it, nobody was talking about it. In terms of the cost that Lebanon has had to bear because of this. Has been far greater than any of the GCC countries, for example. But that's not been talked about. Now it's because it's become the mainstay of the Iranian demands. That's why we're talking a lot more about it, I think, which is unfair.
How about President Trump, who explicitly softened 3 days ago his earlier prohibition on Israeli strikes in Lebanon? He told reporters that Israel retains its right to defend itself, a language that in the Israeli reading has authorized the current campaign. From your view, is the United States acting as a ceasefire mediator in Lebanon, or as usual, it is enabling as the strategic guarantor of an Israeli operational tempo?
I think there's the context behind Trump and his actions are, everybody's watching the ceasefire clock. The real clock is the domestic one, which is the approval ratings with the elections coming up. So, the oil prices are up. The American consumers are paying more at the pump every week. There's a lot of the war is unpopular in the US. There's a lot of opposition they're facing, and I think a lot of these statements are very, it's not the best negotiation tactic, but this is what it appears that this all has been. If you look at the troops arriving in the Middle East, for example, a lot of this is to put pressure into getting a quick settlement on the process, the Islamabad process that we're calling it now. But I think this is more domestic, driven by the domestic pressure on Trump. He said on Sunday, "Don't rush me." 5 days ago, he was talking about lots of bombs will start going off. So that shift tells you everything about the pressure he's under. Iran knows this as well. Iran's strategy, I feel, is to outlast Trump's patience. And every week this drags on. The domestic cost for Trump increases, and Iran is basically trading time for leverage. Trump is using these statements as a way to build more pressure on Iran, which doesn't seem to be working.
Let's talk about the read from Tehran, as you've mentioned it. Iran's foreign minister is in now Moscow. He started his bilateral tour to Pakistan, then to Oman. He has come to Islamabad as well, been to Muscat. Do you think the Lebanese ceasefire procedure is dead in essence, and we are back to square one? Because from negotiating theory perspective, which one of the existing ceasefire arrangements is producing daily casualties that you would see something that Iran would see as a good gesture? Is there anything in it? Is there an essence to it?
I think Iran's strategy it's brilliant from their perspective. They've offered Trump what he needs most immediately, which is the Hormuz reopened, the oil prices stabilized, and a win that he can announce to his audience. But what they're doing now, they're separating the nuclear file from the war file. Once the blockade is lifted and the war is officially over, Trump loses his leverage on the enrichment. That proposal is designed to give Trump an exit ramp, the proposal that it's being in discussion currently, while preserving the nuclear program. And I feel the immediate reaction from the Trump camp will be to reject it outright because it doesn't solve the nuclear problem. Now, interestingly, Arakchi is in Moscow, I think, today, or he's visiting Moscow in the next. But I think it would be interesting to watch what comes out of Moscow in the next couple of days, because I think there might be a proposal where the Russians take control of Iranian enriched uranium, or at least offer to. And I think that might give Iran what it wants, having its enriched uranium with a trusted ally, and it gives the US a sort of a win, saying, okay, it's been removed from Iran, so Iran does not possess enriched uranium.
Would Trump allow this? This would be a clear, some sort of losing end to US, that the stockpile is going to Moscow and not coming back to US.
I think that's where the pressure of internal politics with Trump and the Iranian decision to keep dragging this a little bit, to pile on more pressure. I think this is designed to push Trump in a way that he might not have that choice. He might consider having the uranium removed from Iran as a win.
Wow, fingers crossed. Thank you so much, Dan Qayyum, for joining us. So tonight we did 3 stories as one connected theater. An Iranian foreign minister in 3 capitals looking for the room in which a deal can be signed. An Iranian proposal arriving in the White House Situation Room that asks Washington to end the war first and discuss the centrifuges later. And a Lebanese ceasefire that is every day producing the dead bodies of the people it was nominally signed to protect. If there is a single finding tonight, it is this: the wars of 2026 are no longer being fought primarily on battlefields. They are being fought in the language used to describe them. A ceasefire that kills is still called a ceasefire, and a war the public opposes is still called the president's war. The room in Islamabad remains open. The question, as ever, is whether the words exchanged inside it will actually mean what it says. I am Zunaira Azhar, and this was DECODE. Good night.